Good evening and welcome to Pinupski Does Macros. We're going to finally do Ganyu. I've been putting this off for a long time because her abilities act weird and they act different on different days, and sometimes the timings change, and sometimes shit I did yesterday doesn't work today, which drives me a little crazy. But we're going to give it a shot. I kind of revisited the premise, and instead of trying to find the absolute lowest possible reliable millisecond delays for every single ability and turning it into a rotation that's probably not going to work correctly on your computer. Anyway, what I did was I found some close to the lowest delays possible for all of the rotations and texts and macros that I do for her. And then I made a copy of that profile, and I just like cranked everything down by like a solid 20-30 milliseconds to demonstrate that they break when you start tuning them down that low. So they may not be, you know, the 5 milliseconds lower that you could get it to run at consistently, but they're very close to as low as they get. And then the second part will be demonstrating that they break. I've got up on the screen here the profile, the Ganyu showcase, and we're going to walk through all of these macros, and then I have an alternative version of it that is Ganyu Showcase Broke. I tuned the timings down slightly so that I can demonstrate that they break. We're going to be doing this in Abyss against some low-level slimes to demonstrate that in combat against real targets, these things do or don't work, do or don't break. Quick list off of what we're going to be covering. First, M1 to M1, that's holding M1 until you charge a Frostfire arrow, releasing it, and then immediately holding M1 again to charge another Frostfire arrow. You repeat this ad nauseum. Second one, M1 dash. Pretty much the same thing, hold M1 until Frostfire arrow charges, release, and then instead of holding M1 again, you dash out of it. It's technically a tiny bit faster, but it also consumes stamina and forces you to choose a direction to go. M1R, the golden child of weirdness. It takes advantage of the 1500 millisecond charge time for our aim mode, combined with the fact that when you are mid-dash, in other words about the halfway point through a dash, you can start buffering charge time on Frostfire arrow when you're holding M1. So the sequence for M1R leverages two quirks of Ganyu to create an unholy love child of optimization. It's also the most annoying tech to do by hand, but I'm not doing this shit by hand, so I don't care. So M1R is what I use. Anyway, number 4, Ganyu's C6 Instacast Frostfire Arrow. There's a couple of these. Number 4 is the Aimcast variant. Due to the changes that they made with aiming when they nerfed Ganyu's C6 bug, you no longer, when you do a quick shot, and we'll go over what a quick shot is a little later, but you no longer cast it in the direction your camera was facing. So look at Ganyu here. She's facing up, she's facing down. Normally, if you did a quick shot, with or without a Frostfire arrow charge buffered, you would shoot where like your aimer would be if you started holding aim. No, not anymore. Now, no matter where your camera is actually facing, it behaves as if you're facing and shooting perfectly horizontal. So we'll get to that when we demonstrate the tech, but that is why there's an aimcast variant, because it enters aim just long enough to actually put it where your camera is versus sending it off perfectly parallel to the horizon. So that's aimcast variant. Number 5 is a proof of concept for Ganyu doing a C6 Instacast Frostfire Arrow double quick shot. In other words, she's going to hit E, do her quick shot to launch the Instacharge Frostfire Arrow, dash back forward, and hit E so that the damage from E is right back where you started hitting whatever targets you were targeting, and then fire off another insta-charged Frostfire arrow. There's not too many situations where you really need to unload those rapid fire like that, but it's just a proof of concept that the timings exist, it's a viable tech, it's a thing you can do. And then, last but not least of the C6 stuff is her C6 instant Frostfire Arrow quick shot variant, which it's faster. It will auto aim for you. Ooh. Doesn't require you to enter aim mode, but it does do that. Just shoots straight across the horizon thing if you don't have a target within auto aim range. And then we've got just a little proof of concept for our aim mode being a 1500 millisecond charge time for the first shot. You cannot toggle into RA mode repeatedly and get benefit from that. There's some sort of cooldown on it. I don't understand how or why it works, and frankly, for general mass consumption, it doesn't really fucking matter how or why it works. You just need to know that your first shot charges at 1500 milliseconds and subsequent ones won't, and staying in RA mode won't repeatedly give you that charge time. Number 8. Rapid fire, it's literally just a hotkey that spams left mouse button for you. It's nothing special, but I do use it to cancel out of a macro sometimes. So if I've got a macro that's doing like ba 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 and it's just like on a repeat cycle or something, just mashing the rapid fire button will cancel out of it, at least for IQ. That's why I keep it around. And then number 9, just a quick shot macro. Like, that's all it's doing. That's actually a charge shot right there. But we'll go into that with actual mobs in Abyss. So without further ado, we are entering Abyss. Since I'm recording this all as one take, hopefully I don't egregiously fuck anything up because I really don't want to re-record it, and I'm definitely not editing it. Alright, we're going to switch to our non-broken variant. We are on M1. All my OBS shit looks correct. Let's do this. All of these are moving variants. Why? Because in reality, most people are moving around and strafing, and the timings are slightly longer to have non-moving tolerance, I believe it is. So anyway, you need to be moving for these macro timings to work. If you choose to do a standstill turret mode, you may have to increase the timings on these macros. That's kind of a your problem thing at this point. M1. Look at these slimes blow up. I'm gonna cry if while I'm recording any of my Frostfire arrows don't do the Frostfire arrow thing. Sometimes getting tapped by an enemy, like even a little slime, will cause your character to stutter. That will throw off tight macro timings. That's a you problem, not a me problem. I'm not going to make macros that somehow get around that. You're just going to have to not get hit. Alright, so before we swap to floor 2, we're going to swap to the broken variant. We're going to go over to IQ and we're going to confirm that we're on the M1 macro. We are. And now we're going to proceed to floor 2 and we're going to show you the broken variant of M1. Same repeat delay. All it takes to break it is tweaking down that pause duration a little bit. Giving myself reduced stamina consumption does not impact anything that I'm doing, in case anyone's wondering. So, broken M1. Alright, do you see that? That's a almost but not quite charged Frostfire arrow. I don't think you need to see me wave clear the entire thing here to get the idea. We're going to exit out of that. We're going to go back to our showcase. We're going to move on to the next macro. M1 dash. That's right, you have the esteemed pleasure of watching me enter and exit Abyss repeatedly. I hope to shit you're skipping over this part of the video, cause otherwise it's really boring. Alright, macro number 2 on the non-broken profile, M1 dash. Look, we fired, then we dashed. Does what it says, ladies and gentlemen, modern technology. It's consistent. We're not getting any Frostfire arrows that are almost fully charged, but not quite. I don't know what to call those arrows. Dud arrows, T1 arrows. Anyway, let's switch to our broken profile. Switch to our M1 dash macro. Same repeat timings, by the way, in case you were wondering. 185 for the non-broken variant. 185 for the broken variant. Without further ado, let's go say hi to some goblins. This is the M1 dash broken variant with tuned down timings to demonstrate that it do in fact be broken. Alright. This is M1 dash with a ton of almost charged Frostfire arrows just by taking like 20-30 milliseconds off time. Again, we're not going to sit and hang out with the goblins full time. We're going to exit out of here and move on to the next macro. Going back to our non-broken profile, we're going to move on to our third macro, which is M1R. Let's give a round of applause to M1R because it's the real hero. Look on the bright side, guys. I could have really terrible music tastes and just be subjecting you to that in lieu of the soothing sound of my voice. You could be listening to like some really atrocious K-pop right now, and nobody wants that. So, non-broken. Macro 3, here I'll tune it so you can see the timing on it. This one needs a 210 delay between iterations. That's fine. It's going to be the same for the broken and non-broken variant of it. So this is M1R. It's like a really shitty day to be an Electro Slime. You ever wonder how low-level critters feel when your max-level character just comes back to the starting zone just to, like, whoop their ass repeatedly for seemingly no reason? Like, we don't even drop loot, what are you doing? That's how these guys feel. Broken variant, M1R. Moving on to floor 2. Let's go. We're going to murder some goblins with a broken-ass macro. Now, disclaimer, because M1R is a little weird and I didn't want to spend too much time on it, I tweaked the timings down. Some of them still occasionally fire off because they're right on that threshold of viability. And because it's basically 2 macro techs built into one, the M1 stuff and the R-aim stuff, there may be a little bit of weirdness where like one of them shitting itself allows the other one to live and work properly. I don't care. The point here is that I'm demonstrating that tuning the timings down breaks the macro. You don't want 50% of your shots to be fucking tier 1 arrows. That's worthless. So, alright. Broken variant of M1R. See, that's a proper one. That's a proper one. That's a dud. That's a proper one. That's a dud. That's a proper one. That's a proper one. That's a proper one. That also is a proper one. That's a dud. That's a proper one. That's a proper one. That's a proper one. So, a lot of those went off. A lot of those also failed. If you take the timings that I'm providing for M1R and you want to play around with those timings and make them super, super, super tight, you go right ahead. I enable you to do that. I empower you to do that. I'm making this not only so that people can just reuse this shit verbatim, but also so that they can play with it themselves. So please go ahead and do that. I've been doing this shit with Ganyu and her macros since release, and I've actually slowly had to iterate up a lot of the timings to give them true versatility, to make them really viable in all content, because I found I'd be out in the world herp-a-derping, murdering some random goblins, and then like my macro suddenly wouldn't be working correctly, and I'd be like, well, what the fuck is this? And I'd go and I'd poke at it a little bit, and I'd be like, well, okay, if I add another 10 milliseconds here, it works again. So a lot of the macros I ended up with may not have been the lowest demonstrated timings ever when I was doing it in a sterile environment, and Abyss even kind of counts as a sterile environment, to be honest. You know, they're from practical application and making it be reliable as close to 100% of the time as possible, so that I wouldn't be out doing random stuff and then just have the macro randomly shit out on me. So anyway, there you go. M1R broken variant, definitely broken, not completely broken, but broken enough where you wouldn't want to be using that version of it. That version of it would be very sucky for normal day-to-day use. Aight. Let's exit, move on to the next macro. Back to our non-broken showcase. The rest of these should hopefully be pretty short. We're going to look at her C6E Tech Frostfire Arrow Fast Aim Cast. Probably going to pause in the middle of these runs because I don't need to do 50 iterations of these macros. They're pretty fucking simple. We're just going to show that it works, swap to the broken variant, show that it doesn't work, and do that until we run out of bodies to shoot. So like I said before, Aimcast is going to put it where your camera is instead of putting it on a perfectly horizontal plane. So here's her Aimcast version. See, it went where I was pointing. Alright, we're going to do this one more time. Went where I was pointing. Pause. I'm going to go back to IQ. Did I actually tamper with these? Yes, I tuned it down to 430 from 460. Alright, so broken variant. We're just going to demonstrate that it don't fucking work when you change that timing. Alright? Did not work. See, oh look, I'm stuck in aim. Alright. One more time. Because I fucked with the timings, it doesn't work. Save a slime, shoot a wall. Alright, now let's swap to our next. Quick shot. Ooh, quick shot times 2. Alright, gonna need 2 charges here. You excited? I'm excited. This is on number 5. So this is just a proof of concept that you can do 2 rapid fire. Ba-doom, ba-doom. Do you see how it aimed at that one? That was like up there a little bit. If not, pause the video and go back. That's just me pointing out how they auto-aim. Do I really have to demonstrate the broken variant of this? Alright, let's do it. Broken variant of the ×2 cast. Spoiler alert. It's broken and it's not going to work correctly. Also, we only have 1 mob left. But it doesn't matter because it didn't even fire off the Frostfire arrow. Why? Because it's broken. Let's continue to the next floor and the next macro. Swapping back to our non-broken profile. Alright, so we just did the ×2. Let's do the single shot. All of these, by the way, have a thing baked into them here where I just do some extra R keystrokes because there's a short window of time where you can't re-enter R aim. I'm taking advantage of that to make sure that when I do this R toggle to do the quick shot, that it cleanly exits out. It doesn't always, though. It doesn't always. You're using broke-ass ratchet tech, okay? So there's no promises that this shit's going to work 100% of the time, so sorry. Anyway, this is Ganyu C6E Tech, Frostfire Arrow, Instacast, Quick Shot. Just a single cast. I fucking love this. I use this all day long. Alright, so watch this. Boom. Boom. I'm not aiming at that guy, by the way. It's choosing a target. Sometimes it doesn't do the sequence correctly, but we'll get into that later. Like, I can just run in circles, wait for charges to come back up, and occasionally hit 6 on my mouse for this macro, and it'll just shoot goblins. Alright, so while we still have a couple of these volunteers left, let's swap over to our broken variant of the quick shot. Alright? And spoilers, it's broken, it's not going to fire. Alright, here we are, pressing the key for the broken variant. Do you see how it fired a normal arrow? It's because it didn't stay in aim mode long enough. So, like, you can fire normal arrows while you have the buff up for C6. And if you don't do the quick shot correctly, then you just get a normal arrow. And that's why the timings are what they are. So, working timing, broken timing. We just demonstrated the broken timing. We're going to exit. And we're going to swap back to our non-broken profile. And then it's time for just, really, this is the last real thing I'm going to show you. This is, oh no, I lied. So we're going to do, our aim is 1500 milliseconds, just as a premise to prove that. I guess I can do it in Abyss. I can really just do it outside just as easy, but just for the sake of consistency, we're going to shoot it at actual mobs. I swear to God, the first motherfucker that complains about the length of the video, like, you're banned. You're banished from the kingdom of macros. Like, you're no longer welcome here. I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart. This shit already works for me. Like, I use this all the time. I'm doing this to share with people like you. So take my knowledge and enjoy it. Anyway, this is just to demonstrate that it's 1500 milliseconds on the first time you enter RA mode. See, look at that. That was a Frostfire arrow with 1500 millisecond charge time. There's no other situation where you can do a Frostfire arrow that fast. Now we're going to swap to our broken version. And, alright, so I put it on 1450 just to drive the point home. This is not going to work. See? Normal arrow. Normal arrow. Alright, are we satisfied? Going to swap back to our non-broken profile. Last but not least, quick shot. Here's what quick shot is. It is an R aim toggle with extremely tight timings that allows you to do that. Notice how I'm just strafing around these guys and it's auto aiming. Now if I'm far away from enemies, quick shot just goes like on a perfectly horizontal plane. It's really hard to be very far away from enemies. Get away from me, slime. I don't like you. So oh, he got close again. So anyway, there you go. That's quick shotting. It's an R aim toggle fires off an arrow before the game even know what happens, and then you've canceled out of it, and so the game shits itself, applies normal auto attack aim to your charged shot, and yeah, that's quick shotting. Now sometimes my C6E Frostfire Arrow Instacast Quick Shot macro, nobody's allowed to name that, okay? It either keeps like the full obnoxious name or I'll think something up, but like don't go naming it like fucking Ice Dragon Strike or some dumb shit, okay? Please, thank you. But anyway, sometimes that macro doesn't fire off correctly, and so I'll be sitting here like a chud with a fucking glowing hand. And what the quick shot macro is useful for is, now that I have this charge, I can just fire that off. So the other thing you can do is just manually cast your E, walk away, and then use a quick shot macro to blast that guy in the face with a shotgun. Cast in an E, and then quick shot. And I think technically I did actually go and bastardize a quick shot. Yeah, okay, so I set this timing to 0 milliseconds just to prove that it breaks. I don't know why this is even necessary. See? Like it doesn't work. You get stuck in R aim, you end up firing normal M1 shots, like it's broken. I'm really not going to explain it any more than that. Obviously this is a non-working macro. You saw what the first iteration did, you see what this version did. They don't do the same thing. This is a broken macro. It doesn't work properly. The 20 millisecond delay is necessary. I'm now officially sick of talking. That has been all of my Ganyu macros. There will be links and guides that actually go over the timings and shit. As always with macros, I do not dictate how your PC performs. I do not dictate what macro software you're using or any other quirks of your hardware or software or operating system. So any timings provided are provided as is. The expectation is that you have something between your ears besides a potato and that you are capable of iterating conceptually on the timings provided. If it doesn't work, try making the wait time between actions slightly longer. Try making it slightly shorter. Play with it. If you really get stuck, come and poke me in Discord. But I really don't want like 12 people a day coming to me. Try a bit on your own first.